ILS-22 approach in McMinnville. We'll start with discussing what is this approach, what do we need to fly, how to fly it. Then we'll go through the setup and the steps by steps. I'm trying to break this down into the smaller chunks. My ultimate goal for those of you who will be flying training in instruments, it has to become predictable, boring task. Really, that's when you know that you mastered that. So, and yeah, by the way, welcome to yet another class. This is the Fly with Dimitri channel, and we'll be posting those videos online. So, yeah, okay, let's go. So, McMinnville ILS-22 approach. First of all, let's bring up a bigger portion of the chart and look at it. What do we have? Come on, really? Go. Fighting with the bar. We have a current plate to October 40th. It all starts with understanding an approach. Let's say you've never been to a place. You're going to some place, you know you need to land there, weather is not favoring. So let's analyze approach. What do we have? We see that DME is required. Okay, noted. We have GPS in lieu of DME, most probably on our plane. Otherwise, you have to have a DME. Also, inverse T and inverse A, that is that takeoff minimums are non-standard for the airport, could be climb gradient or visibility, and this airport has different requirements when you want to designate it as an alternate airport, something to keep in mind. Now, what this tells us early on at the planning stage is this airport isn't all plain and simple. There are some nuances. Obviously, area here is not as flat as North Dakota, so something to dig into and understand the risks. We have local altimeter not received. We use Aurora and increase ADAs in this case, and nothing else that applies. Good. Also, we notice that approach has a approach lighting system Malser. Good, noted. Then we start looking at the approach itself. Initial approach fixed battleground. Again, for those of us familiar with the area, we're flying out of Twin Oaks. We have battleground that's up north behind Twin Oaks. We have Newburgh, that's right there. It is not an initial approach fix, but we have a feeder route, so we can expect that as a transition. And then we have a rover. Good, let me go back to the slides. So there, I'm breathing this approach. I'm just trying to understand it and breathe it. Initial approach fix, battleground rover, we have feeder, we have the IF approach Osier. That can be a dual purpose, either intermediate approach fix or a initial approach fix, depends how you fly that. Then final approach fix, leave here. There is a UNIS with a step down altitude requirement before the final approach fix. Decision altitude is pretty good, 200 feet AGL, so that takes us low. And the missed approach, let's read this together. Missed approach is climb 900, then climbing right turn to 3000 via heading, and then Newburgh radial to Lucy and hold. There is Lucy. So when we try to visualize and understand that, the holding fix is kind of on the way from the missed approach point back to where we started. Nice. Now, that gives us some idea of what we are about to fly. Now, what do we need to do? What else do we need to talk through to fly an approach? Like, one of the questions you have to understand is, well, what equipment is required to fly this? On the chart, you see that DME is required. Great, but let's analyze this approach together. If, let's say, you only have ILS and DME, how would you identify the Osier, for example? You look at the Osier and you have a radial from Newburgh we have a radial from battleground, and we have ILS. So if you have a dual VOR system, you can identify that via an intersection. Great. So theoretically, this approach is flyable with no GPS. But then one other thing you need to check is NOTAMs, and I was hoping to make a little bit of a quiz out of this, but I didn't. Because there is something very interesting in those NOTAMs if you check them. And specifically, and those are NOTAMs as of yesterday, one of the NOTAMs as of today says McMinnville ILS localizer to runway. Not this one, where is it? This one. ILS or a localizer runway 22 procedure not authorized except for aircraft equipped with suitable RNF system with GPS. Newberg out of service. So, question for those of you who is tracking with me. Why would that be the case?
Can you clarify the question? Why would what be the case? Why do we need GPS?
We are looking at ILS approach, and it says procedure is not authorized unless you have GPS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any disconnect here? You're looking at ILS approach that needs ILS, and you can fly
because that. Like I think if you don't have without GPS, you need 2 VORs in service. One of them is out of service, right? So you can't, like with just one VOR, you cannot identify the intersections, right?
That's a good one. Yeah, indeed. Another problem is the misapproach. You are on the right track, Alexei. Excellent. And another segment that's fully dependent on the Newberg is the missed approach segment. So you can fly, theoretically, you can fly without identifying UNIS if you intercept glide slope at Augier, but then UNIS is hard to identify without Newberg, and leave the same deal, plus the missed approach point. So that's a good live example of what how requirements can change because of the NOTAMs that are currently in place. So approach that seems great for ILS only airplane suddenly becomes a RNF required. Now, this brings me back to this, a pre-flight action. The mnemonic, if you don't have it memorized yet, NW craft, that is a easy way, and especially for us here, Northwest craft, right? 91103, before, and that's the title down below. Before beginning a flight, you have to become familiar with all available information concerning this flight. This is one of pretty key and important paragraphs in 91 that you more than likely will be asked on the check ride. So recommend just remembering that 103 number. And you can go read how exactly it says, but the acronym Northwest Craft, you have to get NOTAMs, all applicable to the route of flight, which could be a lot. Second, weather, obviously. 1WX brief, 800WX brief, or aviation weather, or for flight. That pulls all the relevant weather all in one place. Then next, known traffic delays as advised by ATC. That one could be a little confusing, but if you listen to Portland weather, ATIS specifically, you will sometimes hear the phrase that sounds like flow control in effect for Seattle, for example. So right there on ATIS, they're telling you that traffic system is backed up, expect delays. There are, sure, this link will actually work. I'll have to work on this. But FAA has a page with all current known delays posted, and also they'll probably be on ATIS. That's for the K. Then runway length at relevant airports, obviously, probably some along the flights, definitely departure, alternate, and destination. Then separately, alternate airports available, and if required to file, then you have to file an alternate that's suitable for the scenario that you're flying. And that is another 91-169 item that is worth to remember. The easy way to remember that is the 1-2-3 rule. And some of you probably remember this, but in short, you have to file an alternate unless you have an instrument approach available at your destination and the weather within 1 hour before and after is better than prescribed for that airport as an alternate. Coming up, there you go. So this one. Again, this alternate is always required unless you have this 1-2-3 rule with a standard or special instrument approach procedure. The alternate airport that you select, it must meet those alternate minimums posted. Remember the inverse A down below, that's your sign that a selected airport that you have selected has those alternate minimums. And if none published, then the standard 600 feet, 2 miles for non-precision, or correct, otherwise 600 feet for precision and 800 feet ceiling, 2-mile visibility for a non-precision approach must be at the expected time of arrival. Otherwise, a visual for no posted instrument approach procedure. So there is a 91-169 just showing this, so hopefully it sticks to memory. Again, I distilled this 169 into more human readable language. For me, at least, that's what it took to figure this out. And there is the 1-2-3 rule for aircraft for at least 1 hour before, 1 hour after the estimated time of arrival. Ceiling will need to be 2,000 feet, and the visibility 3 statute miles. That's talking about your destination airport. So back to Northwest Craft. The 91-169 tells you when you have to have a alternate airport filed. Does it mean that if weather is nice, you don't file? Not necessarily. Still may be a good idea. But when you'll be asked on a check ride, when is an alternate required, then 91-169 is your answer. And last but not least, fuel requirements, 45 minutes plus alternate plus destination. So this may seem like a lot of preparation, but Northwest Craft is a great way for the actual flight preparation, and definitely a structured way to address this on the check ride. Let me pause here, see if that's tracking with everyone, if you have any questions.
What is the T in Northwest Craft?
Takeoff. I lost the line. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for noticing.
Takeoff landing distance.
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I literally lost it. Takeoff and landing distances.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So looking at your aircraft, looking at performance you have, and making sure you know what to expect. Okay, so NOTAMs. As I shown, this example shows us that although we're looking at ILS approach, you can't actually fly that without GPS system on board. Also, it shows that the straight-in localizer MDA is slightly higher, probably not a big deal, and pilot control lighting is out, but that's a short distillation of all the NOTAMs that are on the screen. If on a check ride you brief an approach and never check NOTAMs, that's more than likely fail, or at the minimum, will not leave a good impression. So don't forget the NOTAMs. We went through the briefing, initial approach fixes, feeder out, final approach fix, altitudes. So next, what we do is once we're ready to do all this, we file. Now, question, like Starks, Twin Oaks, and McMinnville pretty close. Straight line distance probably 15 miles away. Can you file direct? Should you file direct? The one obvious reason for not filing direct would be you will not fly direct. If you're looking for an approach, then Auger is offset, and that's likely one of your initial approach point options. So when thinking through what you file, try to predict what will be approved and also what's convenient to request. In this case, for the training flight that I posted on video, I filed Newburgh, then Auger, then McMinnville. So in a file plan, what you will have is the two waypoints, Newburgh, Auger, and departure 7S3, destination McMinnville. The path is defined with the Newburgh and Auger. So file that. I use ForeFlight. You can do that with Flight Service Station or other ways, but ForeFlight is just the most convenient way. And next, you load that approach. So on a 650, this is how it will look. A little easier on the 750, obviously large screen, but most of the training aircraft out there, ones that we use in Twin Oaks, including, have the 650. Newburgh as part of the approach. So when loading this approach, you choose Newburgh as a transition point. Auger is the initial approach fix in this moment, in this scenario, and the hold in lieu of procedure turn is shown as a hold. But important thing on that is aircraft will not be suspended in this hold. You'll do one turnaround and get out of that hold onto a final approach course. Then UNIS, leave final approach fix, and as you load this approach, you verify that what you're seeing on the approach plate is matching what the 650 is seeing. So Auger, the limit after Auger is 2,500 for UNIS, 2,500. Inside the hold 2,900, that's a check. Then leave final approach fix 1,900, that's a check. Then verify the missed approach procedure. You climb 900, there's a line for that. Intercept heading 069, that's a check. And then the next screen will have the Newburgh and Lucy. So loading the approach is the first step, then simultaneously briefing that, walking through the plate and making sure that what you loaded matches what you see on the plate. That is essential part of flying the approach before you fly it. Okay, so at that moment, approach is briefed, approach is loaded, verified, and you're ready to go. So what happens next for, well,
do you need to activate the plan, the flight plan with ATC?
Well, technically you're right, but that's not how you start.
Okay.
Ryan, spell it.
How about getting the clearance from the tower?
Exactly. Well, tower or not, yeah, you get the clearance. And Alexei, why I stumbled a little bit? Would you say that this is an activation of the plan? I'm not sure, but you are getting a clearance to fly this. If you are on the ground in Twin Oaks, you are talking to portal approach or clearance delivery. If you are in a towered airport, you'd be talking to the ground. So on the ground in Twin Oaks for this scenario, you call clearance delivery, you tell them 726 Foxtrot Alpha on the ground in Twin Oaks, picking up IFR to McMinnville. They will respond always in the same format. And this is something that, at least remembering back at my ground school that I took, they really made us practice to write this, because the clearance that you hear on the radio is going pretty quick. But they will always follow the same format, so you need to know what to expect. In this case, they will say 76 Foxtrot Alpha, advise when ready to copy. Say them ready to copy, and they'll go 76 Foxtrot Alpha cleared to McMinnville Airport via Newburgh, then as filed. That's what AF. Altitude 4,000, frequency 1181, squawk 2362. They would normally say hold for release after that, and you read back the whole thing. Cleared to McMinnville, Newburgh, then as filed, 4,000 feet, 1181, squawk 2362, hold for release. In this case, hold for release is mandatory readback item. They want to know that you are holding, you're not departing until they release you. Once you're ready, and they will ask you, are you ready now or later, they will find a window of opening in IFR system, and they will release you for departure within a specific time window. So for example, 5 minutes. Next step. Ryan, I'm not sure if you were trying to speak, you may have been on mute, but I know you know this. So help me out, what happens next? You're still on mute, there you go.
Assuming you get that time, you depart within those 5 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. So you got off the ground, you turn downwind or whatever departure that you prefer. What do you do next in any approach? On any IFR flight departing your airport?
Would you then contact ATC to let them know you're in the air?
Exactly, yeah, whatever frequency you were given. In this case would be...
You need to get on CTAF and report that you're departing Twin Oaks.
Actually, good catch. Yeah.
Because you're on 119.95, then you get your clearance, then you talk to 123.05. Then once you're airborne, whether they give you 118.1 or 126.0, then you switch over.
That's
right?
You know what? Thank you for keeping me honest, Vanessa. You're absolutely right.
That'd be a lot safer.
You announce, well, my question was when you already departed, but you're right. Let's not skip item. Announce departure, Twin Oaks on 123.05. Yeah, Vanessa, thanks. You know, that's just looking so much assumed that I just skipped it, and I shouldn't have. That's why I need all your help, guys. So you announce your departure, done. And this would be using 119, is it 119.9 or 95, Vanessa? Do you remember?
95. Yeah, and nickel down from $20 is what someone told me.
Wait, what? $20 what?
It's an expression, a nickel down from $20 to 19.95.
Okay.
At a discount. It's clearance delivery.
That's a way to remember. Cool, thanks. Okay, next you announce your departure, and per AIM, you only have to do once. You're saying 76 Foxtrot Alpha, departing 02, leaving area south. Done. You don't need to jump back on the frequency, say last call or one before last. At least AIM does not require that. If you need an advisory circular for that, let me know. And then once you departed Twinox, you contact approach. In this case, the frequency you were just given, 118.1. And the phrase that you would say must include altitude. Portal approach, RV12, 76, Foxtrot Alpha, 1,600, well, for an example. You don't have to be very specific on where you are, but you must include altitude. They already are waiting for your squawk code to pop up on the radar, but using altitude helps them to verify that you are on a good altimeter setting and you are both looking at the same altitude. So what ATC will most likely say in response, 76 Foxtrot Alpha, ident.
Portal approach, RV 76 Foxtrot Alpha, 1,200, landing 4,000.
For 726 Foxtrot Alpha, point departure, ident, maintain 3,000.
Ident will maintain 3,000.
And Vanessa, you've probably flown this a dozen times in the last couple of weeks, so please jump in if anything I could add to this slide, okay?
Oh, the only thing I would say is sometimes we get 126.0 instead of 118.1.
Yep.
118.1 has been really hard to hear lately. And what I found out was it's okay to say, hey, you're really hard to hear. Can we switch to 126.0? I haven't tried that yet, but someone advised me that we could do that.
Yeah, I know it just depends on how many people they have in the tower, but that's a good advice. If you're struggling to hear them, just tell them they may have an alternate frequency for you. That's a good advice. Okay, so once in radar contact, and depends on altitude and location, this may take a little bit or maybe instant. Once in radar contact, they will say, radar contact 3 miles, 3 miles north Newburgh, say request.
Advise McMinnville, weather, say approach request.
I will advise and will request ILS TC McMinnville 76 Foxtrot Alpha.
Roger.
And that's when they're ready for your request on the approach. The request will be pretty simple. You tell them you would like ILS 22 in McMinnville. They either say Roger or you can expect that. Now, what happens next? So at this moment, you are approaching Newburgh from the north. And once the clearance can come before Newburgh or after Newburgh, depends on how busy they are. In this case, imagine that approach is all available, happy to help, and even before reaching Newburgh, you will get an approach clearance. Now, another important memory item for you is the PTAC. That is the format that all clearance come into. Position, turn, altitude, clearance. This will sound approximately as follows. 76 Foxtrot Alpha, you are 2 miles from Newburgh, cross Newburgh at 3,000, clear ILS 22, approach McMinnville. So they're giving you where you are, and that's for situational awareness. Make sure you are, again, on the same page. Cross Newburgh at 3,000, that's your turn, direct Newburgh, and your altitude, 3,000. And clear ILS 22, approach McMinnville. That's your clearance.
6 Foxtrot Alpha, 2 miles from Newburgh, cross Newburgh at 3,000, clear ILS 22 to approach McMinnville.
Cross Newburgh at 3,000, clear ILS 22 McMinnville, 76 Foxtrot Alpha.
At this moment, you go in a 650 and you activate approach mode, because from here on you're cleared to fly the approach plate, and it is now your responsibility to fly the altitudes posted. Now, one of my favorite flows, maybe call it a checklist, but probably more than a flow, more a flow than a checklist. Wire, weather, instruments, radio, what to expect. Depends on where you are in your approach. The instruments and the radio and what to expect will change. The weather is kind of one-time thing. You try to receive that early. If you don't hear that, you get back to that later, but make sure it's done. Instruments. Once you have PTAC clearance, you activate approach mode. Well, that's if you flying a system with autopilot. If not, well, then you just fly it by hand. On the radio, you're talking with approach. You probably monitor the weather if it's a single radio. And the next frequency would likely be the McMinnville. And those are all the questions you ask yourself. What do you need for instruments? What do you need for radio? And then what do you expect next? All this is your foundation to be ahead of the airplane. So for the expect, we'll be expecting Newburgh soon. And from Newburgh, since we got cleared as filed, we'll turn to Auger.
Auger in 1.8. So
K68, phone approach, expect
one of the
right.
checklists I use is wire, weather, instruments, radio to expect. We have weather in McMinnville. The flight plan is loaded.
020.
McMinnville has been identified. We can listen for the ILS at
294, reduce speed to 210.
There you go. Source Morse course.
Alaska 1319, approach 126.9.
Those guys are busy today. If I switch to green needles.
Alaska 868, fly heading 060, back to your sequence, maintain 8,000.
That's a Mitch. Good.
Present 2269, expect runway 10 left.
Auger in 0.6 miles. What to expect? I expect to go and do a procedure turn, then switch to green needles once I'm established inbound, and then we'll fly green needles all the way to decision altitude of 361. Auger coming up in 0.2 miles.
Now, remember how I filed the plane? Okay, question coming up. Alexei, I think you will be my next target. Remember how we filed Newburgh, Auger, McMinnville, and we just got cleared for this approach. What happens when we hit Newburgh and then we hit Auger?
So we're already at Auger, you said?
Yeah. Well, let's go step by step. So when we hit Newburgh, you are on pink needles, you're flying direct Newburgh.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? If I jump forward, then I'll spoil
then
my
we turn
answer.
towards Auger and fly Auger, right?
Okay. What's the
And then-
altitude?
Oh, the altitude? Great question. Yeah, I think it's probably still 3,000.
Let me put them side by side 1 second. Push clearance. I'll try to make this a little more convenient so we can see both at the same time. There you go. So we got the clearance. Newburgh is next. Here's an approach plate. Hopefully screen is large enough. Okay, Alexei, so feeder route has a couple numbers: altitude, heading, and distance. Heading and distance are kind of for your information, but altitude is critical. Unless you've been cleared for a different lower altitude, this number here allows you to descend to that altitude. So that's the significance of that number on a feeder route. Very similar to the altitude restrictions on the other sections of approach. Really think of it just like that.
Okay, so we cross Newburgh at 3,000, or we can be above?
That is a great question, and that depends on what exactly they told you. If the ATC direction was cross Newburgh at 3,000.
6 Foxtrot Alpha, 2 miles from Newburgh, cross Newburgh at 3,000, clear to ILS 22 to approach McMinnville.
You better cross exactly at 3,000. What they can also say at or above. The reason for that difference could be if there is traffic above you, they may want to restrict you to the lower altitude. In this case, they will say cross at 3,000. And that little tiny difference, at versus at or above, can mean a lot. So listen in, take notes, don't miss those details.
Okay.
So in this case, somehow they cleared us to cross at 3,000. And we look at the feeder route, well, we have 3,800, so we cannot descend any lower. Great. So from Newburgh, you proceed to Auger. Now, that's where the first can we read the plate moment comes in. What do we do at Auger?
Do we need to intercept the localizer?
Maybe. Any other opinions?
Or
Ryan?
just turn the heading?
Ryan, help us out. I'm getting my notes.
Another option could be hold.
Is that an option, or would there be a definite defined path in this case?
Uh, 218.
That'd be runway heading, wouldn't it?
Well, usually on the plate, it'll say, like, if you look above that hold figure, there's a 185 radial there off the Newburgh VOR, and it says 3100, no procedure turn.
Yeah.
So you're coming from that direction, you don't have to make a procedure turn, right? So you're coming from the Newburgh VOR at that angle. I was waiting for other people to answer, but
Yeah, I know. But thank you. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, please expand a little more. I'm looking into which chapter exactly that says.
Okay, so you're heading from Newburgh VOR to Auger, and it would be a super sharp turn if you turned right and headed toward the airport. So they've got you set up to go away from the airport and start a hold. It's a parallel entry there. So you're heading, see how it has a 218, but it also has 038 and an arrow in the opposite direction. So you head out 038, kind of intercept the opposite direction of that oval, and then come back around and head inward. And you can ask for a hold. You'd say, I'd like to have another turn in the hold before heading straight into McMinnville, or maybe they'll tell you that they've got traffic and they want you to do another turn in the hold. And they can have multiple people at different altitudes going around that circle thing there at the same time. And the bottom one is the next one in line in the queue to land.
Yeah.
Did I say too much?
I think it's perfect. No, yeah, let me just reiterate this. So in regulations, this turn from IF, this Auger is dual purpose, initial approach fix / intermediate approach fix. If you are approaching this from a random direction, then a procedure turn is mandatory. You hit Auger, you fly inbound, that's a pilot deviation. There are a couple exceptions. The two most notable that you have to remember is if you are on a charted path, feeder route, or a leg that says no PT, that is a no procedure turn. Another option could be if if you would have a magic word cleared straight in ILS 22. So despite being a pretty sharp turn, well, in this case, maybe too sharp, but ATC can clear you straight in, and that magic word straight in is exempting you from doing the hold in lieu of procedure turn, which is in other words, is a course reversal. Now, when you are loading this approach, the 650 depends where you're flying from. It may ask you if you need a course reversal. If you're flying, if you're choosing Auger as transition, it will ask. But if you are choosing Newburgh, then what you'll see on the screen will actually be, it will just load. And zooming in, the picture will look like this. You are on an active flag that is in pink, or magenta to be exact, but I call him pink, Newburgh to Auger. And then next is the course reversal in those little arrows. The 650 will choose a hold entry for you. So all you need to do is just fly it. And yeah, and that again, it is mandatory. Going from Newburgh to Auger, since you do not have an OPT here, you must do procedure turn. And in contrast, when you are flying Battleground to Auger, let's say you filed Battleground Auger McMinnville and you were cleared, Battleground as filed, you are flying this leg with an OPT, you will have a pilot deviation if you do execute a procedure turn. So this little guy here, this racetrack, has a lot of significance. It is mandatory unless it's not. And you need to know what you're doing. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, that's a problem. But there is an easy way to solve this. If you are in doubt, do you have to do a procedure turn or not? Just ask ATC. It's like, hey, I'm kind of not clear. Do you want us to do procedure turn or straight in is okay? And they'll tell you. Okay, so from that, next, we are passing Newburgh. We're running my favorite wire flow, weather, trying to receive instruments, flight plan is set, altitude loaded, autopilot on if available, radio, you're talking to approach, and next you are expecting hold in lieu of procedure turn and parallel entry at Auger. See, this is already a good example where running the wire, you're asking yourself, while you're still here flying from Newburgh, or here on the map, from Newburgh to Auger, you're asking yourself, what do you expect? And your brain immediately says, I have to do hold into your procedure turn. What kind of entry? Parallel, probably. Then you look at the map, and sure enough, it matches your expectations. And by the way, if GPS suggests something different, that's a good reason to ask ATC, what do they want you to do? At this moment, if you go in a flight plan map, you will see this bracket kind of arrow from Newburgh to Auger. So that page will show you where you're going. You look on the default navigation page, you'll be on the track that GPS built for you from Newburgh to Auger, and you better be right on the center. And what else? You're talking to approach here, and you are, well, standby for 1235. I didn't switch the frequency yet, but really should have by now. That's us passing over Newburgh. Let's go to the next step. Next, you are passing Auger. Look at the map. The GPS has sequenced to the next step, and now it's showing how you enter with a parallel, then you do a course reversal and back on this leg, which goes towards Auger, but then inbound to McMinnville. I would run the wire flow again. Weather, by now you definitely should have received it, so that's a check. Instruments, I would confirm autopilot mode and are we on GPS or pink needles. At some moment we'll need to be switching. On the 650 you see that pink GPS still in this case, in this moment, while you are course reversing, you will be on the pink needles on GPS mode. Radio, you're talking to approach, you probably load McMinnville CTAF at this moment. And what do you expect? Once you're done with hold in the procedure turn, you descend 2900. That's, Alexei, that's a number I think you gave me, right, earlier? In that hold, once you are established, you can descend 2900. And probably next, what you expect is once you cross Auger inbound, then your next altitude restriction is 2500.
And once established and crossed Auger, we can descend 2,500.
And you have verified those altitudes against the approach plate when you were breathing. So this screen may be your best friend, and depends on the equipment you have. You may have those altitudes shown in several places, not only on approach plate. Okay. So we passed Auger. Let me pause for a second. See if this makes sense. Any questions?
I have a question.
Please, go ahead.
At what point do you usually recommend where to brief the hold? I mean, the procedure. Where do you usually recommend it? Do you have a kind of a standard spot between Newburgh and Auger, or when you're in the procedure turn, or what?
Where you want to brief the approach?
Right.
Great question. For this short of a flight, I would do that on the ground. Real life or practice, if you are making a 25-minute flight, just brief it before you take off, because once you're up from the ground, things will turn quick. And if you're in real IMC, you want to offload as much of this from yourself as possible.
Okay.
What do you think? What would you do?
Well, I've just heard it several different ways, and that's why I was asking. Yeah. So I've also heard it to brief it between Newburgh and Auger, make sure you have the right plate and stuff like that. But I always find it to be a bit of a struggle to juggle all the things at that point. Even though I briefed it on the ground, it's like just verifying that you have the same one. And so I just wondered, I think it's kind of a style thing of what people do, but I wondered if you had a standard. That's all.
Vanessa, if you can expand on this a little more, I need to run check to my kid and I'll be right back. But that's a very valid point. I know you've been training on this for a long time. You probably, out of everyone attending, the next and more experienced person. I'll be right back. But that's a very good question. My point, my position is, if you can brief this ahead of the flight, do it.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to have to go pretty soon too. I have somebody coming, but yeah, briefing. The one thing that I ordered the Jeppesen plates recently, and one of the things that they do across the top is, well, see, I can't, the pointer, you won't see it, but it's almost out of view up there where they have the frequencies across the top before the plan view. And somewhere along there, I don't see it there, but the inbound course heading is really stressed in the jet plates, and some flight instructors stress it more than others do. But that 218, oh, there it is. Thank you, Dimitri. Yeah. And that's something that it took me a long time to realize how important that was, to make sure that you know what heading you're going, where the airport is for situational awareness.
Yep.
That's all I would add. I think, you know, what you've got going on, you've got a great procedure here. I wondered that one little bit about when do you recommend briefing? Because I've just heard it so many ways.
Yep. You know, that's a great question, really, because I got well, stuck or stumbled or almost failed by mock check rides multiple times when I was rushing that brief. So now the main learning, which I'm hopefully helps others, don't try to squeeze in the briefing. You have to have plenty of time to brief that approach. And what it means, let's say you were flying from Newburgh to Auger, and that's a very short leg. To be specific, how short is it? Newburgh, Auger, like 5 miles roughly.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's a short one. That will go quick. So, and let's say you're flying this, you haven't briefed it. Oh, by the way, If you were cleared for an approach without briefing that, well, that's a fail. I would not pass a student that received a clearance before briefing an approach. So that may be a bad example in the first place. But in any case, if you are in a situation where you're short on time to brief an approach, ask for delay vectors.
Yeah.
Just tell them, hey, I need some time to set up an approach. Can I get delay vectors? And they'll give you a heading to fly, and you got all the time in the world to do the brief.
Okay. Excuse me, Dimitri. Sorry, I wish I could stay longer. I gotta go. Okay.
Thank
I have
you
a
for
student.
joining and contributing, Vanessa. Nice seeing
Thank
you.
you. This is great. Bye.
Yeah, but Vanessa brought up a really good point. When do you brief? Well, wherever you decide to brief, you have to have time for this. I've personally made mistakes of briefing this incomplete. The stupidest one is I briefed localizer approach as an ILS, and I didn't fly it correctly, and that was embarrassing. And all happened because I was too busy and I couldn't brief it correctly. Briefing is important part of flying this correctly. So find time. If you ran out of time, ask for delay vectors. Doesn't matter if you are in a system with ATC or with a instructor or with DP, just ask them for delay vectors. I am convinced that no one will fail you for asking for more time, but they will fail you for rushing and making wrong decisions, definitely. So there. Okay, so back to the approach. You are passing Auger. GPS is telling you to go in the parallel entry, then hold. It will start the timer for you. Down below, you see it says the hold 00. It will actually do the counting for whatever it's worth, and that's how you know you are in a hold. Next, once you have turned around and you have exited the hold, you see the flight plan will show you which current leg you're on. Default nav will show you going from Auger to Eunice. So you're leaving the hold. Eunice is next. And the G5 will ideally shouldn't show such a crooked page. You should be flying wings level at the correct altitude. In this case, you would be descending 2,900 to 2,500. So there's nothing really should be going on there, except that at this moment, see the V-log down below. For those of you familiar with the 650, which button and where would switch between the GPS mode and the ILS mode?
CDI.
This one. Yep, thanks, exactly. Now, is there any way that a 650 can show switch it automatically onto the green needles? It is, yes. It's actually in the manual. Garmin has pretty good manuals. They're large, but I don't have it handy. I found it. It will switch one of the options in the menu, at least in the settings, unit depending. It will switch into green needles before the final approach fix automatically. Should you rely on that? I would not recommend. It's real easy to forget, and if automation fails you, you fail the check ride, not the automation. So the recommendation is you turn inbound, go to green needles, make sure that VLOC is on, and on a G5, see that little green diamond down below? That's your localizer course. So you should be receiving that and tracking that from here on to the pavement. Wire flow, weather, still check. Instruments, you switch to green needles. If you have GFC 500, you confirm approach mode. Radio, you're probably still talking to approach. Definitely have McMinnville loaded, not 7S3 like I show in the pictures. What do you expect? You expect to stay on the localizer and you descend 2,500. Again, you look at the flight plan. There is your 2,500. You may confirm that with a chart. Once again, Eunice 2,500. At this moment, that's a step down altitude restriction. However, on your G5, you probably have a glide slope coming up higher than you are. It is not abnormal to wait until that glide slope, intercept that, and fly the glide slope. But your personal preference or DPE personal preference, if you dive to 2500 and intercept glide slope at Eunice, or even at an actual 1900, which is this, if you look up in a legend, this number is called a glide slope intercept altitude. Really all options work in life. I don't think you'd get a fail on the check ride if you don't do that. So weather check, instruments on green needles, radio set. You expect to stay on localizer and descend.
This would be the good time to switch to green needles. Wonderful, and arm the approach mode. Nope, too early. Navigation.
President 2114, expect runway 10 left today.
The localizer is armed and localizer captured.
00 Alpha, thanks.
Exposure in 0.8 miles.
Expect vectors for the RNAV 31
Intercepting localizer. And once I cross Exposure,
right, heading 150,
we are descending 2,500.
Maintain 7,000.
At this moment, you are passing Auger, and there you go, passing Auger and moving towards Eunice. Next. Crossing Eunice. You know, back to my flow, wire-C or C-wire, but that's something that I'm trying to slightly update on my personal list of items, because it is real easy to forget the C for the checklist. This is where you are nearing the final approach fixed leave. You absolutely have to run the before landing checklist. And you have to get airplane configured and in your final configuration as you plan to have it for the landing or the go around. And you have to do it before the leave. Similarly, if you would go back and update this to a C wire, that will probably remind you to run a cruise checklist or before descent checklist. I haven't mentioned a checklist a single time until now, which is wrong. Do not forget the checklist, please. So, wire C, weather check, instruments, localizer tracking, glide slope armed, radios, approach, and McMinnville. There is my 123.0. What do we expect? We expect to be transferred over to that CTAF frequency and intercepting the glide slope. By the way, the glide slope armed, that is specific to autopilot. If you don't have it, then it's kind of a confusing statement. So I'll clarify, this is when you have the autopilot on. And autopilot or not, before the final approach fix, you are nearing that required glide slope intercept moment. If you passed final approach fix and you did not intercept glide slope, that's a problem. And then before landing checklist, C for checklist. Make sure it's done before leave.
Now we are Eunice, 1 mile leave. I'll do my before landing checklist. Flaps up, fuel in, fuel pumps on, lights, no lights on fuses. Lights are on, gauges are good, and McMinnville frequency is loaded. I think they forgot to switch us to McMinnville.
726 Foxtrot Alpha, ready to services terminated. Appreciate your approval. Report on the missed approach.
Will report me 726 Foxtrot Alpha. Awesome. McMinnville area traffic, 726 Foxtrot Alpha, 5 miles straight in runway 22 on ILS approach, McMinnville.
Okay, next. Crossing leave. Again, I just keep hammering that wire flow, call it C wire now. Weather still check, instruments, localizer tracking, glide slope is tracking, missed procedure, altitude loaded to alt select. That's another important item. At this moment, once you have been established on a glide slope, you don't need your alt select anymore. Go and load the final altitude for the missed approach, because once you hit missed, the last thing you want to do is think, what are you climbing to? So that's a good moment. Once you pass the final approach fix, get that altitude loaded. Radios. You probably are talking to McMinnville by now, and put approach in standby, because when you go missed, you go right back to approach. What do you expect? Well, the good way of flying an approach is to expect a go around. So you expect to go missed at decision altitude if no runway in sight, and if you get to land, well, that's a great bonus. I hear that keeps a lot more people alive than the other way around. Next, so at decision altitude, pitch up, power full, and at least my instructor, he was pretty sticky on this. Normal approach is flown at way above stall speeds. At least VREF, which is 30% higher. In reality, in a Cessna, you're probably going 85-ish. You have plenty of speed to pitch up and start getting away from the ground, because if you really are in IMC and you don't see the runway, you're 200 feet away from the ground if your instruments are accurate and you are not below the glide slope. So if you reverse those two, again, I'm just sharing what I've learned. If you do the power full and you're still flying down, that only accelerates your closing onto the ground. Like, not a great idea if you are in IMC. So pitch up, then immediately power full. If you have autopilot, to take off go around button, toga, that helps. It sets your flight directors, and that is easier for you to pitch up. In some systems also, that will sequence 650 into a missed approach segment. Autopilot, if present, you want that to give your guidance, so you put it in lateral navigation mode and vertical indicated airspeed mode. And very important, aviate, navigate, communicate. You pitch for that VY climb, clean up, announce GA. Me teaching last Saturday one of go-arounds, it took us 5 minutes to remember that we didn't clean up the flaps. Very embarrassing. Clean up is important, and announce GA at the CTAF. That is a definitely good practice before you leave the area. And after all that, with a lot of empty time lines in between, once your workload permits, then you go back to a terminal radar controller and announce you're going missed.
500.
On localizer and on glide slope, 440, 420.
McMinnville helicopter 2 Lima Romeo on the go Alpha taxiway parallel 22 right traffic McMinnville.
380, 361, I don't see
Minimums,
runway.
Minimums.
Go around.
Alright, get us to VY.
Working on that. Thank you. So now we are executing missed approach. We're climbing to 900.
Roll 10X, full departure to contact on maintain 15, 15,000.
And at 900 we turn right turn, climbing right turn 30,000. Here's the 900. Let's turn. Portal approach, 76 Foxtrot Alpha, going missed at Mark Minville.
We're We're 726 Foxtrot Alpha, Pullman departure, ident, and stay next request.
Traffic, 2 o'clock, low.
76 Foxtrot Alpha, we'd like to request 31 left, RNF at Hillsborough.
We're 726 Foxtrot Alpha, roger, and climb and maintain 4,000, expect vectors.
4,000, expect vectors, 76 Foxtrot Alpha.
Okay, so that is almost done. But I would, in my experience, I would say that's probably the most kind of concentration demanding, consuming moment, because you have to do a lot. You have to keep the course, you're climbing direct to 900. You have to look for that turn at 3000. Turn after 900 direct. Well, anyway, you follow those instructions. So there's a lot that's happening. So don't forget to aviate, because approach controller can wait. They see your transponder. Of course, if you delay this by 5 minutes, that will be awkward, but give it, even 30 seconds seems like a lot of time during the go around. Give it 60, no one will be upset. So don't rush. I'll have to put this on the last slide. The best advice to not fail a check ride is go slow. Don't rush. Follow the path. Leave communication until you're actually ready for this. Okay, now missed approach. In most airplanes, the 650 will require you to activate that GPS missed approach pressing this button. Once you do, you will get sequencing, climb, then intercept a heading, then direct Lucy, and the missed approach segment will be highlighted in pink. This screen is great for additional situational awareness. You know where you're flying, you know where you should be flying. Now on the G5, if you have autopilot, you will have flight directors. If not, then you better be flying exact headings and altitudes as in the missed approach procedure. And once you're ready, you again, you talk to approach controller, and if no other instructions are received, you enter the hold. Almost done. What happens in the hold? GTN will enter the hold and suspend the sequencing. So see now down below this susp in the bottom line, that tells you that the system is no longer going to sequence the flight plan. It may actually be at the very end of the flight plan, but regardless, not sequencing. Now, remember that that screen, the default navigation screen, the rightmost button, at that moment, that button turns from OBS into suspend. And if you press that, it will suspend, unsuspend the sequencing at any moment. At this moment, it's suspended. The hold will count the time on each leg, inbound and outbound. And unless you decide otherwise, the GPS will continue to sequence you in that hold without any changes. And that's how the approach ends. This is where you take the time to decompress. If you have autopilot, let it fly the hold for you and just take the time and chill. Well, we're done. Pausing here for questions if you need to go back to any steps.
What are the options like after hold? So when you hear, you don't have to go into details, but briefly.
Yeah, well, so in real life, let's say you went missed because weather sucked in McMinnville, and it maybe sucked because it was maybe a cloud was passing through, you didn't break out of the cloud. And you think, well, if I just wait for another 10 minutes, you look at the next red screen and or for flight, same deal, right? And you see that this yellow and orange thing is moving sideways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. You tell ATC, hey, I would like to hold here for 10 minutes and then try that approach again. They'll say, awesome. They may give you expect for the clearance time, and once ready, they will give you direct OGIR, for example, or whatever you request. So next depends on you. You want to try the same approach. After waiting, you wait and get clearance for an approach. If you'd like to go to Hillsborough, you tell ATC, hey, we'd like to go direct Hillsborough, try RNF 31 approach. They'll say, Roger, fly heading 090. And then the story repeats. So you have a limited guess. You better figure out a way to get on the ground, and that's up to you to decide what's next. Once you made up your mind, you tell ATC what you need, and they'll make it happen.
Okay.
So, yeah, as I promised, let me actually add this. Main thing, right? Slow down, literally. So main advice. No, how to pass IFR check ride. There, that's much better. I need to trademark this. Slow down, seriously. My CFI told this to me multiple times, and I kept hammering like 100, 110 all the way until very late, even on final approach segment. And then some other person told me, look, your indicated airspeed is really a speed at which troubles come your way. And suddenly it made sense. I'm like, oh, okay, great. And I start flying 75. And the whole game became so much simpler. When I took my double I check ride, the only one, I'm not kidding, the only one comment from my DP was, you're flying too slow. And I'm like, yeah, because it's a check ride. That's it. But it's amazing how much simpler it made it. So go slow, because if you fly approach 100% correctly, just kind of on the slow side, you still passed and you're still alive. If you fly too fast and you screw up decision altitude or heading or something else, best case you fail, worst case you are in IMC, and well, you know, it can be worse. So yeah, slow down. I'll keep this slide at the end of every instrument flight lesson, probably. Hopefully it will help.